So now, back to Porter Real's channel. Welcome back, guys. Joined by VWolves92. So this is another podcast. Let's see what happens in this podcast. Well, Porter will be questioning everything and everyone. I wonder, it's all about you. But stay tuned for this week's podcast. You are free. Porter Real is free to discuss whatever topics he likes to choose. Freedom of speech is available on this platform. And as always, no trolling, please. Constructive feedback only, please. Porter Real, the stage is yours. Take it away.
And I noticed that V Wilson92 is displaying an Illuminati hand gesture there. Go on, tease the viewers.
The triangle, guys.
We often talk about the Illuminati. David Icke calls it the cult.
That's one of the symbolism.
Do you think the Illuminati is real? I definitely think there is a global structure in place. I mean, it's not part of this podcast, but if you think about it like censorship and...
If we go down this rabbit hole, this could be an hours-long podcast, but to summarise, yes, I do believe there is a global structure and there is definitely a class level throughout the structure, definitely.
Because it's like the transgender issue, wasn't it? Was that a coincidence or was that formed in a secret society, the World Economic Forum? Let's get the global population fighting each other. Divide and rule is a classic war tactic. And the Illuminati, they want America divided. And you've got clowns like Donald Trump. The Democrats are radical communists. Well, that's not exactly uniting people, is it? And then you've got the Democrats saying, Trump is a far-right orange clown. So 50% of the American pop are always fighting each other. If we all look up symbolically, the same hands are pulling all the strings via this global network, the Illuminati. Anyway, point number one, Nigel Farage and Reform UK want to lower the national minimum wage, workers' rights, income tax, corporation tax, and reduce government spending to balance the books with the UK economy. Yeah, I mean, Margaret Thatcher summarised this when she said the problem with socialism is eventually governments run out of all other people's money, and with the minimum wage increasing every year, it's an asset for workers, but it's a liability for businesses. And the problem with socialism is it does breed greed, where we now have the baby boomers who politicians rely upon because they are the biggest cohort of voters, and the baby boomers will vote for the Conservatives or Reform. But you know, you got the baby boomers want free bus passes, free medical prescriptions, otherwise we're not going to vote you in. And that is socialism. And more people expect to be given free handouts, free benefits, more fish from the government, because politicians want to get re-elected. And I agree with Nigel about tackling the minimum wage increase every year. It's got to stop. It's a liability for a business, especially for small businesses. They can't keep affording every year to be paying higher wages when workers are not necessarily as productive in return. But yeah, I do see the point of Reform UK. They want to dismantle workers' rights. Will we have to work at the weekends? Will our annual leave be scrapped altogether, working 7 days a week? It's finding the right balance here. But I agree, reduced government spending has got to stop. We've talked about this previously, where we're paying for asylum seekers who are legal, they are allowed to make a claim, but they're being housed in hotels, whereas in Dublin and other parts of the world, give them a tent. Oh, end of massage. You know, asylum seekers are just given tents in many other countries here, folks. But we're providing ex-hotels. It's costing the taxpayer a fortune. But what do you think? Do you think Nigel Farage is right to dismantle workers' rights, to fight socialism, which the UK cannot support? Every year, businesses have to pass their costs on because the minimum wage increases. So do people actually feel better off? Does it solve the problem? What do you think on this issue?
Interesting, and it is a double-edged sword as well in this regard, because if the minimum wage stops increasing for the people, and if you it even gets lowered for, say, the young, like the 20-year-olds, well, it was back in the day, wasn't it, Bolton Real?
What's that for?
The minimum wage, they were on a much lower rate than the standard minimum wage. So if it even gets reduced, then what's the incentive for the young to actually apply for jobs and go to work? They could go on minimum wage, go on benefits, and in each of the states, is there any benefit to working if they're on below minimum wage? What do you think about that, Bolton Real?
Well, that's interesting because V. Wilson 92 said leech off the state, and that's what Reform UK also say. Anybody that claims universal credit is a sponge. But actually, a lot of claimants are already in work. And I'm trying to find a real balance here. But socialism does lead to greed. Give a man a fish and he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish and he eats for a lifetime. So it's finding the right balance. But workers' rights are important. Are we going to have to work 7 days a week? Annual leave, will that be scrapped? You know, Farage will repeat the same playbook of Donald Trump. There are no parental rights. Maternity leave, paternity leave will go out the window, for example. But yeah, socialism does lead to greed. And I referenced Margaret Thatcher before. Yeah, the Conservative supporters in central London loved Margaret Thatcher because she brought all the jobs into central London because everything was privatised. But here in the north of England and perhaps across the UK, Northern Ireland, Wales, Scotland, we were decimated when all those mines were closed. I don't know how productive they were, but Thatcher destroyed the rest of the UK except central London and the southeast. So it's finding the right balance. But yeah, I agree with him where young people out of university can't find their first job working at McDonald's whilst at university because the minimum wage is preventing them from doing it. Small businesses can't afford minimum wage every April to pay these increases. It doesn't solve the problem. But is it easy for Farage as a capitalist to say, working class people are scum? Well, he doesn't say that, but that's the impression he gives, isn't it? The working class, let's throw them a bone, for example. Let's give them a fish and it will solve the problem. But if you give people an inch, they take a mile, for example. So, and ironically, what Farage wants to do is reduce regulations if he becomes Prime Minister. Now, we do need some regulations, otherwise people will drive 100 miles an hour in a 20-mile-an-hour zone. People can't be trusted to be responsible. But ironically, Brexit has actually increased regulations because the European Union are the largest trading partner of the UK. And we have to fill out more customs paperwork now. So has Farage actually increased regulations for any businesses that export to Europe? How ironic is that? And what is our relationship with Europe going to be like? Will Farage stick two fingers up and say, we're copying America, we're an independent country, but we're going to repeat the script of Trump? You decide, maybe I'm wrong. So Reform UK, to summarise that point, are they a party of the rich? Or are they absolutely right in fighting this socialist greed where people want to be given more benefits and more fish, which doesn't clearly solve the problem? You decide on that point. What do you think on that point before I move on? Socialism, Thatcher, Farage?
Yeah, one of the famous quotes that we often use. Give a man a fish and he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish and he eats for a lifetime. Free market capitalism is the way to go, but sometimes regulation is necessary, and if it gets even more deregulated, that could be a train wreck. So, Bolton Real, what do you think about all this that Farage is proposing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying my absolute best to provide a balanced point of view. I don't hate Farage, I don't hate Starmer. I'm trying to be absolutely balanced, and I'm not inciting hatred or ridicule at all towards anybody. But I think we need to have this discussion. I love free market capitalism. If Aldi, for example, sell a bag of potatoes for 50p instead of £1, then customers will have an extra 50p in their pocket. What are they going to do with it? They're going to invest or spend it within the economy because they've got more cash in their pocket. Consumers have a voice and they can shop wherever they choose, depending on the product or service that they receive. Whereas we're going to talk about this character, New York City Mayor, Mr. Mondani. He wants the government to control supermarkets, for example. That is completely a communist ideology. I love free market capitalism, but I don't like trickle-down capitalism, where if Farage wants to give billionaires tax cuts, is that going to impact working class people? It hasn't throughout history, but socialism doesn't work as well because it does lead to greed and more demands and entitlements. So point number 2, New York City have elected a Muslim mayor, Mr. Zohran Mamdani, with ultimately a Marxist manifesto of government-controlled supermarkets, free bus travel, and the first mayor to build a mosque in America, potentially. You know, that is not going to happen. It may not happen, but will Mamdani build a mosque in America for the first time? I don't know. I'm not inciting hatred towards the Islamic community at all, but Mamdani is a Muslim, but he's definitely flirting with Marxism. Government-controlled supermarkets, holy mackerel. You know, everything the government touches turns to crap. But ultimately, a lot of people will like that idea. Here in the UK, a lot of people are saying the UK government should control the water utility, gas and electric, before that evil demon Thatcher privatised it. And apparently it was cheaper, because British Gas are a train wreck. Although they do offer good services with free half-price electricity, the free market capitalism, if used appropriately, can benefit working class people and billionaires and everyone in society. Everyone has more cash in their pocket to invest or save within the economy. So Mamdani wants government-controlled supermarkets and rent controls in New York. Now, people viewing this, we don't give a damn about New York. How's that going to affect me? Well, Sadiq Khan and other mayors across the world, maybe we'll try the same thing there, folks. Donald Trump has threatened to deport Mamdani as a reckless, greedy Marxist. However, Mamdani can simply jack up corporation tax for Trump Tower in New York. I mean, there is a Trump Tower in New York. It's going to be interesting to see how Mamdani and Trump get along. Do they cooperate? Do they butt heads? Do they fight? Let's find out for sure. But ultimately, to summarise this point, I'm not inciting hatred towards Muslims or Mamdani. You know, if people want to be a Marxist, that's your choice. I'm not ridiculing you at all. But what this relates to with Trump, Mamdani, Farage, the Labour, the same hands are pulling all the strings. It's divide and rule politics once again. That's what politicians do across the spectrum. Right versus left. Conservatives versus liberals. Divide and rule. All over the world, if we look up symbolically, the same hands are pulling all the strings. Skin colour, 2025. And here in the UK we have Sarah Poachin, a Reform UK politician, ridiculing adverts for talking about brown people. You know, we shouldn't be talking about skin colour. It's 2025. We're all human. Let's all unite and place our differences aside. We're not going back to 1939, for example. So divide and rule is the aim of the game for the Illuminati or the global elites. But the same hands are pulling all the strings. V-Man, a lot to digest. What do you think?
Interesting topics there that you discussed there, and it definitely does depend who's in charge of all these businesses and what their ideology is all about. So in this case, it sounds like he's a total Marxist that wants total government control and limit the cash flow. But certainly interesting discussions there that you had there, Paulton Real.
Yeah, and I have to keep inserting these disclaimers. I am not promoting hatred towards anybody or any religion or any skin colour. I'm just trying to trigger a healthy debate by promoting critical thinking and free speech. But one of the oldest wars, actually, is economic wars. Marxism, socialism and capitalism. And people in New York have voted for Mamdani because they already have capitalism now. Billionaires like Mike Bloomberg and the Estee Lauder family, billionaire the Walmart family. But working class people in New York have not felt the benefits. Their rents keep getting jacked up, they get poorer. So does capitalism or trickle down capitalism work? We're not talking about free market capitalism, but does trickle down economics or capitalism work? I'm just trying to provide a balanced point of view. So I'm exhausted now, folks. I've had a lot of fun, but I'm not promoting hatred towards anybody, but ultimately question everyone. But divide and rule is the name of the game with politicians all over the world. We're all human, folks. Let's unite, put our differences aside. But ultimately, all we can do is take responsibility of our lives, of our finances, and not rely on the financial services industry salespeople to take control of us. And one final point, I listened to the Rich Dad radio show with the host Robert Kiyosaki, and once again he was pumping Bitcoin. Now, this is not financial advice. If people want to speculate on Bitcoin and hope the price goes up, it may do, but that's your choice. I'm not going to lose sleep over that. But that's what he was doing, pumping Bitcoin. But Robert Kiyosaki has always promoted passive income to pay for expenses to escape the rat race, but Bitcoin doesn't produce any cash at all. And that's why I think Robert Kiyosaki is an absolute greedy crook, in my opinion. He's a total clown, in my opinion. Whereas other legends, not Warren Buffett, but a character called Jack Bogle, he actually created, or he was an advocate of the index fund, a low-cost fund, which anybody can take advantage of. And he was the founder of Vanguard. And what amazed me with Jack Bogle was, as the founder of Vanguard, he could have quite easily have said, like Robert Kiyosaki, buy my latest book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or you'll end up like my poor dad with a PhD, poor, helpless and desperate. But Jack Bogle said, just buy an index fund with Vanguard. It's low fees, but I don't care, because we're still gaining some custom. But he showed real integrity. Index funds like the S&P 500 will gain a lot of options for people at a low cost. But he worked on Wall Street as the founder of Vanguard and faced enormous criticism because financial advisors, fund managers, didn't like the concept of an index fund because it brought down costs dramatically. Warren Buffett supports Jack Bogle and index funds. But compare Jack Bogle to Robert Kiyosaki. Kiyosaki is a crook. He's a greedy clown crook. All he's doing is promoting his books, but that's just my opinion. Jack Bogle, the founder of Vanguard, he showed real integrity. What a difference it makes. This is not financial advice, but choose your mentors carefully in life, folks. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm not promoting hatred towards anybody, but question everyone. Choose your mentors carefully, because V. Wilson has mentors as well. Be careful who you take advice from. What do you think?
And all I'm going to say with that point, always do your research before you're diving into any investment assets. So don't dive in like a blind chicken. Go in with knowledge. Go so that you know exactly what you're doing. And we're going to summarize now. So as always, you can leave any comments down below. Paulton has certainly done a lot of questioning of everyone and everything today. So it's time to wrap up this podcast. So stay tuned for this podcast to premiere on Porton Reels channel. It's all about you.
I'm a good cook.